A flying motorcycle powered by jet turbines, a hoverboard that crossed the English Channel, a wearable jet suit with more than 1,000 horsepower, and an electric aircraft small enough to trailer home, yet capable of lifting one person straight into the sky. These machines look like props from a science fiction movie, but every vehicle in this countdown has either flown, been demonstrated publicly, opened for customer orders, or reached real owners. One important note before we begin. In the United States, some of these vehicles are designed around Federal Aviation Administration Part 103 Ultralight rules. That means one occupant only, recreational operation, strict weight and speed limits, and in qualifying cases, no pilot certificate required. But Europe is different. There is no single European rule allowing all of these aircraft to be flown license-free. Ultralight and experimental aircraft permissions can depend on individual national aviation authorities. So, these are not toys. They are real flying machines operating at the edge of aviation technology, regulation, and personal courage. Here are 10 one-person flying vehicles that look like science fiction. Number 10. RYSE Recon. The American flying ATV built for land and water. At number 10 is a machine that looks less like a traditional aircraft and more like an electric ATV designed for the sky. This is the RYSE Recon, a single-seat electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft developed in Ohio, in the United States. The Recon was designed around a very specific idea. Personal flight should not only belong to airports, professional pilots, or wealthy jet owners. It should also be useful for people operating in rural areas, on private land, around farms, lakes, ranches, and remote destinations. Its target maximum speed is 63 miles per hour, or approximately 101 kilometers per hour. Its target range is 25 miles, or about 40 kilometers. It is designed to carry one person weighing up to approximately 200 pounds, or 91 kilograms, and its intended operating altitude is up to about 400 feet above the ground, or approximately 122 meters. The Recon uses 6 independent electric propulsion systems, each supported by removable battery technology. That means the aircraft is built around distributed electric power rather than one traditional aircraft engine. But perhaps its most interesting feature is where it can operate. The RYSE Recon was designed to take off and land from both solid ground and water. That completely changes the image of a personal aircraft. Instead of needing a conventional runway, the Recon could be imagined launching from private land, a remote lakeside property, a farm, or an outdoor recreational area. RYSE completed crewed test flights of the Recon, demonstrating controlled takeoff, hovering, forward flight, turning maneuvers, and landing. The company also designed the aircraft around the United States FAA Part 103 Ultralight category. Under qualifying Part 103 operation in the United States, a recreational single-seat ultralight does not require an FAA pilot certificate. But that point needs to be understood carefully. This does not mean someone should simply climb aboard without preparation, and it does not mean the same rules apply in Europe. In European countries, the right to fly a vehicle, like the RYSE Recon, would depend on local national aviation regulations, aircraft approval, and operating restrictions. The Recon belongs on this list because it presents a very American interpretation of future flight. Not a flying taxi above a crowded city, not a luxury aircraft for crossing countries, but a personal electric flying machine built for open land, rural travel, recreation, and places where the road may simply end. It may not be the fastest aircraft in this countdown, but as a flying ATV that can lift one person from land or water, the RYSE Recon is a powerful place to begin. And the next aircraft increases the number of electric propellers from 6 to 18. Numero 9. Lift HEXA. The 18-rotor aircraft built for public flight experiences. At number 9 is the Lift HEXA, one of the most recognizable single-seat electric aircraft in the United States. The HEXA looks exactly like what many people imagined a passenger drone would look like. A central seat surrounded by a wide circular structure packed with rotors. But the engineering behind it is much more deliberate than the appearance suggests. HEXA uses 18 independent electric motors and propellers. That distributed propulsion system is designed around redundancy. Instead of relying on one large rotor or a single engine, the aircraft spreads lift across many separate electric power units. According to Lyft, HEXA can continue flying and land safely with as many as 6 motors disabled. It also includes an autonomous ballistic parachute as an additional emergency system. The aircraft is designed for operations from both land and water. Around the outer frame are 4 flotation structures, with an additional central float filled with energy-absorbing foam for buoyancy and landing protection. The pilot does not control 18 motors individually. Instead, HEXA uses a triply redundant autopilot computer and a simple 3-axis joystick. The flight control system manages the complicated work of balancing thrust and maintaining stability. That is what makes the concept so important. The pilot is not flying it like a helicopter. The pilot is telling the computer where to go. Lyft has used HEXA for public flight experiences in the United States, positioning it less like a privately owned aircraft and more like an accessible introduction to personal electric flight. In December 2025, Lyft also announced an expanded product roadmap. A planned HEXA-S Sport version was described with a target speed of up to 90 miles per hour, or about 145 kilometers per hour, and a flight time of approximately 25 minutes using extended range batteries. But there is an important distinction. That sport version is not the same as the license-free public experience aircraft. Lyft states that it would require additional training and a pilot license under the relevant United States light sport framework. For American viewers, that difference matters. For European viewers, it matters even more, because the right to operate a machine like this would depend on national aviation rules and approvals. Still, HEXA has already achieved something significant. It has taken the idea of sitting inside a giant electric drone and turned it into a real public experience. Not a movie effect, not a computer rendering, a human being lifted vertically into the air by 18 electric propellers. And the next machine removes almost the entire aircraft around the pilot. Number 8. JetPack Aviation JB-11. A wearable jetpack with 6 turbojet engines. At number 8 is a flying machine that removes the cockpit, removes the wings, and leaves the pilot attached directly to turbine power. This is the JetPack Aviation JB-11. Unlike battery-powered eVTOL aircraft, the JB-11 is not electric. It is powered by 6 specially modified turbojet engines designed for vertical flight. Together, those engines produce a maximum published thrust of 530 pounds-force, or approximately 2.36 kilonewtons. The empty jetpack weighs 115 pounds, or around 52 kilograms. Its published maximum speed is more than 120 miles per hour, which is over 193 kilometers per hour. Maximum endurance is listed at approximately 10 minutes, depending on pilot weight and atmospheric conditions. And it burns aviation or turbine-compatible fuels, including Jet A1, kerosene, diesel, or JP8. Think about what those numbers mean. This is a wearable machine weighing a little over 50 kilograms, producing enough thrust to lift a human vertically, and theoretically moving faster than many cars on a highway. The JB-11 does not use a large computer-controlled aircraft frame around the pilot. The pilot is part of the control system. Movement is achieved by physically directing the thrust from the engines. Tilt the thrust one way, and the pilot moves that way. Manage the power carefully, and the pilot can hover, climb, accelerate, or descend. JetPack Aviation states that the JB-11 uses a sophisticated engine computer that balances thrust between the 6 turbojets. If one engine fails, the system is intended to help the pilot maintain control and land. The company also describes two different operational paths in the United States. An ultralight category version is restricted to 55 knots, or approximately 63 miles per hour, which is about 102 kilometers per hour, and limited fuel capacity. An experimental category version can use greater performance, but requires an appropriately qualified pilot and specific training. That is the part social media videos often leave out. Flying technology may look effortless on camera, but the regulations, fuel, thrust management, training and risk are extremely real. For European viewers, there is no reason to assume the American ultralight route applies. A jetpack like this would face local aviation, operational, and safety requirements. Still, the JB-11 is extraordinary. A six-engine aircraft you do not sit inside, you wear it. And even that begins to look conventional compared with the vehicle coming next. Number 7. Zapata Flyboard Air, the jet-powered hoverboard that crossed open water. At number 7 is perhaps the most exposed flying machine in this entire countdown. No enclosed cockpit, no seat, no wings, no protective frame, only a small board, a fuel system, a pilot standing upright, and jet thrust underneath his feet. This is the Zapata Flyboard Air. Developed by French inventor Frankie Zapata, Flyboard Air is described by the company as the smallest redundant manned aircraft it has built. The vehicle measures only 77 centimeters long, 51 centimeters wide, and 48 centimeters high. That is approximately 30 inches by 20 inches by 19 inches. The platform is powered by 5 jet engines. And unlike an electric drone, where a seated pilot is surrounded by structure, the Flyboard Air places the human body almost completely outside the machine. That creates its spectacular appearance. It also makes it highly demanding to operate. Zapata explicitly states that flying Flyboard Air requires a high level of skill and physical fitness. In 2016, Frankie Zapata used this machine to set the Guinness World Record for the farthest hoverboard flight. The recorded distance was 2,252.4 meters, or 7,389 feet and 9 inches. That is about 1.4 miles. 3 years later, in 2019, Zapata drew global attention again by crossing the English Channel on Flyboard Air, making the journey between France and England with a refueling stop during the crossing. That moment changed how many people viewed personal flight. For decades, a flying board belonged to films, video games, and futuristic concept art. Then a man actually stood on one and crossed open water between two countries. It is important not to confuse spectacle with practicality. Flyboard Air is not designed like a commuting aircraft. It does not provide a cabin, luggage room, weather protection, or casual consumer controls. It is loud, demanding, exposed, and built around turbine propulsion. But that is exactly why it belongs on this list. It looks impossible. It looks dangerous. It looks like a machine that should only exist in a movie, and yet in front of cameras and record officials, it flew. The next machine takes that same idea of jet-powered human flight and moves the engines from beneath the pilot's feet to the pilot's body. Number 6. Gravity Jet Suit, the real-life Iron Man machine. At number 6 is the flying machine that turned one of cinema's most famous ideas into a physical demonstration. The Gravity Jet Suit is a wearable, turbine-powered system developed by British inventor Richard Browning and Gravity Industries. Its appearance is immediately familiar. A pilot stands upright. Small jet turbines sit on the arms and body. The pilot lifts off, turns and accelerates using body movement and directed thrust. It looks like Iron Man flight made real. Gravity's current flight experience material describes the jet suit as using 5 turbojet engines, producing a combined 1,050 horsepower. That is approximately 783 kilowatts of power attached to a human pilot. Unlike an aircraft with a joystick-controlled flight computer doing most of the stabilization, the Gravity jet suit is extremely physical. The pilot controls direction by moving the arms and adjusting the vector of the turbine thrust. This means the pilot is not just a passenger or operator. The pilot becomes a structural and aerodynamic part of the flying system. Gravity does not only show the machine in staged entertainment demonstrations. One of its most important trials involved the Great North Air Ambulance Service in the United Kingdom. In a simulated mountain rescue mission in the Lake District, a journey that would have taken approximately 25 minutes on foot was completed by the gravity jet suit in about 90 seconds. That does not mean jet suits are about to replace helicopters or mountain rescue teams. They will not, but it showed a real use case, rapidly getting one trained responder and essential medical equipment across terrain that would otherwise slow down access to an injured person. For audiences in Europe, that British demonstration is especially interesting because it shows this technology being evaluated in a practical emergency response scenario rather than only an entertainment setting. For American viewers, Gravity currently advertises training experiences in California while also operating from its base in Somerset in the United Kingdom. But a training experience is very different from owning and freely operating a jet suit wherever you want. This is turbine-powered flight, close to the ground, with very little protection and very limited margin for error. Its science fiction appearance is completely real. So is the risk. And that is why Gravity sits at the midpoint of this countdown. Because from here onward, the vehicles begin combining the visual shock of science fiction with a clearer path toward personal ownership, reservation, or recreational operation. Number 5. Pivotal Helix. The electric aircraft American customers can reserve. At number 5 is the Pivotal Helix, a single-seat, all-electric aircraft that may not look as wild as a jet suit, but is far closer to something a private American customer can actually acquire. Helix is a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft developed in Palo Alto, California. It does not require a runway. It takes off vertically, transitions into forward flight, and is designed around simplified controls rather than the complex manual workload of a helicopter. According to Pivotal, the Helix has a cruise speed of 55 knots. That is approximately 62 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour. Its maximum electric range is 20 miles, or around 32 kilometers. Its maximum endurance is 20 minutes. Maximum payload is 220 pounds, or approximately 100 kilograms. And its maximum gross takeoff weight is 568 pounds, or about 258 kilograms. Once assembled, the aircraft occupies a footprint of 14 feet by 14 feet, or approximately 4.3 meters by 4.3 meters. When disassembled for transport, its width reduces to about 5 feet, or 1.5 meters. Charging takes approximately 75 minutes using a 240-volt charger. The most important number for many viewers, however, is the price. Pivotal lists the starting price of the Helix at $190,000 US. The company says customers can place a deposit, configure an aircraft, complete required training, and take delivery in the United States. Helix includes a triple redundant flight control system, radar-guided auto-land, and a ballistic parachute. Pivotal also states that the aircraft fits within the United States FAA Part 103 Ultralight framework, meaning no FAA pilot certification is required for qualifying operations. But that statement needs context. Pivotal still requires its pilots to complete company training. The aircraft is intended for recreation. It cannot simply be used like a car over congested cities. And Pivotal states that Helix is available only in the United States. For European audiences, this distinction matters enormously. An American Part 103 aircraft does not automatically become a license-free aircraft in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, or any other European country. Still, Helix represents a major shift. This is not simply an experimental demonstration aircraft. It is a one-person electric aircraft positioned for real private customers, a vehicle that folds into a trailer, charges from an electrical supply, takes off vertically, and lets a trained owner fly without a runway. Science fiction begins to feel very different when it comes with a price list and a delivery process. Number 4, Zapata JetRacer, the 10-engine flying chair. At number 4 is a vehicle that may be the purest example of engineering madness in this countdown. The Zapata JetRacer is essentially a single-seat carbon fiber flying machine powered by 10 jet engines. It does not have wings, it does not use large visible rotors, and it does not place the pilot inside a normal aircraft fuselage. Instead, the pilot sits in what looks like a futuristic racing seat surrounded by turbine thrust. Zapata's current product page confirms that JetRacer is a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft designed around a modular carbon chassis. It can be flown in manned or unmanned configurations. The aircraft itself measures approximately 204 centimeters long, 204 centimeters wide, and 153 centimeters high. That is around 6 feet 8 inches long, 6 feet 8 inches wide, and 5 feet high. The company also describes a compact operational footprint of approximately 2.2 meters by 2.0 meters, or roughly 7.2 feet by 6.6 feet. That compact size is part of the idea behind JetRacer, a machine capable of lifting one person from very small landing areas such as boats, trailers, industrial sites, or offshore structures. Zapata has previously publicized target performance figures of up to 250 kilometers per hour, or approximately 155 miles per hour, and an altitude target of up to 3,000 meters, or around 9,840 feet. But these figures need to be stated carefully. JetRacer remains an experimental aircraft, and those numbers were presented as projected or intended performance, not independently certified everyday operating specifications. Even without relying on its most dramatic claim speed, the basic engineering concept is extraordinary. 10 micro-turbojets, 1 seat, vertical takeoff, computer-assisted fly-by-wire control, a carbon structure small enough to sit on a trailer. This is not a flying car in the traditional sense. It does not drive on roads. It is closer to a personal, turbine-powered launch platform designed around agility and spectacle. The major compromise is obvious. Turbine propulsion offers enormous power and thrilling performance, but it also brings fuel consumption, heat, noise, and short endurance. That makes JetRacer a very different machine from an electric personal aircraft like Helix or Jetson ONE. It is not trying to be quiet or gentle. It is trying to be extreme. And visually, it succeeds. If you were designing a vehicle for a science fiction chase scene, a flying chair powered by 10 jet engines would sound unrealistic. Frankie Zapata built one anyway. Number 3, Zapata AirScooter, the hybrid VTOL, claiming 2 hours of flight time. At number 3 is another Frankie Zapata creation, but this one takes a completely different approach. Where Flyboard Air is an extreme flying board and JetRacer is a turbine-powered flying chair, the Zapata AirScooter is designed as a more accessible, single-seat personal aircraft. It has an enclosed cockpit. It uses computer-assisted flight controls. It takes off and lands vertically. And most importantly, it uses hybrid electric propulsion rather than depending only on battery power. That makes a huge difference to endurance. Zapata's current product page lists a flight time of 2 hours. That figure immediately separates AirScooter from battery-powered personal eVTOL aircraft that typically advertise around 20 to 30 minutes of operation. Flying Magazine reported the AirScooter with a top speed of approximately 63 miles per hour, or around 100 kilometers per hour. Its cruise speed has been reported at approximately 50 miles per hour, or 80 kilometers per hour. The aircraft's maximum payload is reported at approximately 260 pounds, or around 120 kilograms. Its empty weight is approximately 250 pounds, or about 113 kilograms. and it uses a 5-gallon petrol fuel tank, equivalent to approximately 19 liters. Physically, the aircraft is also surprisingly compact. Zapata lists dimensions of 375 centimeters long, 400 centimeters wide, and 260 centimeters high. That is approximately 12.3 feet long, 13.1 feet wide, and 8.5 feet high. Instead of exposing the pilot directly to the air like Flyboard Air, AirScooter places one person inside a transparent cockpit surrounded by multiple propulsion units. The result looks like a glass pod suspended under a futuristic rotor frame. Zapata says the aircraft is designed to comply with United States FAA Part 103 Ultralight rules and can be flown without a pilot license in the United States under that framework. The company has also promoted recreational flight experiences with training, simulation, and supervised flight operations intended to introduce members of the public to the aircraft. But once again, European viewers need to hear the distinction clearly. The United States Part 103 route does not automatically apply in Europe. A French-developed aircraft flown in the United States under American ultralight rules may face very different operating restrictions in European countries. Still, AirScooter may represent one of the most interesting compromises in personal flight. Electric motors provide controlled vertical lift. A hybrid energy system promises much longer endurance. An enclosed cockpit gives the pilot protection and comfort, and the entire machine remains small enough to feel personal rather than commercial. A one-person flying pod with a claimed 2-hour endurance is not just visually futuristic. It begins to suggest a completely different kind of recreational aviation. But number 2 is the aircraft that has become the internet's most recognizable symbol of personal electric flight. Number 2, Jetson ONE, the flying race car that reached its first customer. At number 2 is the Jetson ONE. Few personal aircraft have produced images as immediately memorable as this one. The Jetson ONE looks like a Formula One racing car with its wheels removed and replaced by electric rotors. The pilot sits inside an open aluminum and carbon fiber safety structure. 8 electric motors power 8 propellers arranged around the cockpit. The aircraft rises vertically, accelerates low over the landscape, and moves with a visual style that looks made for a futuristic racing game. But Jetson ONE is no longer only an eye-catching prototype. Jetson states that it has delivered its first personal aircraft to customer Palmer Luckey in California, marking the beginning of its customer rollout. The company is currently taking orders for 2028. According to Jetson's detailed specification page, the aircraft has an approximate flight time of 20 minutes. Its top-level flight speed is software limited to 102 kilometers per hour, or 63 miles per hour. Maximum pilot weight is 95 kilograms, or approximately 210 pounds. The aircraft measures 2.7 meters long, 1.6 meters wide, and 1.12 meters high. That is approximately 8 feet 11 inches long, 5 feet 3 inches wide, and 3 feet 8 inches high. When folded, its width reduces to just 980 millimeters, or around 3 feet 3 inches. That matters because Jetson is intended to be transportable and personal. This is not a large aircraft stored in a traditional aircraft hangar at a major airport. It is presented as something closer to an extreme recreational machine that can be transported, prepared, and flown in suitable open areas. Jetson lists an empty mass of 55 kilograms, or 121 pounds, with a detailed product page listing mass, including batteries at 115 kilograms, or 253 pounds. The aircraft includes several safety systems: a race car-inspired protective space frame, a redundant battery propulsion system, the ability to maintain controlled flight after the loss of one motor, hands-free hover, emergency functions, radar sensor-driven auto-landing, and a ballistic parachute system. Jetson also states that no pilot license is required in the United States for qualifying operations of the aircraft. That statement is tied to American regulation. European viewers should not assume the same operating privilege applies in their country. But the reason Jetson ONE stands so high in this countdown is simple. It has the full package. It looks extraordinary. It has extensive real flight footage. It has clear published specifications. It has open customer orders. And it has reached its first delivered customer. For a generation raised on flying cars in movies and video games, Jetson ONE makes the dream look surprisingly close. But number one removes the visible propellers, replaces them with jet turbines, and creates a silhouette straight from a space opera chase scene. Number one, Volonaut Airbike, the real-world flying motorcycle. At number one is the Volonaut Airbike. There are machines on this list that look futuristic, and then there is a machine that looks as if it escaped directly from a science fiction film. The Airbike is a single-seat flying motorcycle developed by Polish inventor Tomasz Patan, the same inventor associated with Jetson ONE. Unlike most personal electric VTOL vehicles, the Airbike does not surround the rider with large, exposed electric propellers. Instead, Volonaut describes the aircraft as using redundant jet turbines inside a compact, carbon fiber flying motorcycle design. That one decision changes everything visually. Without large rotor arms, the Airbike has a narrow body. The rider sits astride it like a motorcycle. The machine appears to float forward with almost nothing visible holding it in the air. The official technical specifications list an empty vehicle mass of only 30 kilograms, or 66 pounds. Maximum pilot mass is 95 kilograms, or approximately 209 pounds. For the United States ultralight compliant version, the listed top speed is 102 kilometers per hour, or 63 miles per hour. Maximum flight time is listed at 10 minutes. The aircraft can use diesel, biodiesel, Jet A1, or kerosene. And according to Volonaut, refueling can take less than 1 minute. The company also states that its United States configuration is designed to operate in compliance with FAA ultralight rules, with no pilot license required in the United States for qualifying operation. However, Volonaut's promotional material also refers to higher speed prototype capability, describing flight at speeds up to 124 miles per hour, or approximately 200 kilometers per hour. Those two figures should not be confused. The higher number describes the spectacular performance promoted in development material. The 63 mile per hour, or 102 kilometer per hour, figure is the specification listed for the FAA ultralight compliant version intended for operation within American regulatory limits. For European viewers, the same warning applies as with every other ultralight-style machine in this video. There is no universal European permission allowing someone to simply buy an airbike and fly it without training or authorization. National aviation rules, airspace restrictions, and aircraft approval would determine what is legally possible. But the number one position is not only about legal access or flight endurance. It is about the image. A human rider sitting on a jet-powered flying motorcycle, lifting from the ground without visible wings or exposed propellers, moving through the air like a real-world speeder bike. That is the kind of visual people expect from cinema, not from a company accepting reservations. The Airbike is short-range. It is radically unconventional. Its customer configuration is limited by regulations, and turbine-powered personal flight will always demand serious respect. But no aircraft in this countdown creates the same immediate reaction. You do not need to explain why it looks futuristic. You only need to show it flying. That is why the Volonaut Airbike takes the number one position. It is not simply a one-person flying vehicle. It is the closest thing yet to a science fiction motorcycle made real. So, are personal flying vehicles finally becoming real? The answer is complicated. Some of these machines are still experimental. Some are designed mainly for flight experiences. Some have opened reservations. Some have begun reaching customers. And some remain engineering demonstrations that may never become everyday transportation. But the direction is clear. Personal flight is no longer limited to traditional airplanes and helicopters. The YIVTOLS-0 turns a passenger drone into a foldable personal aircraft. Lift HEXA uses 18 electric propellers to put ordinary people into the air. JetPack Aviation and Gravity Industries place turbine power directly on the human body. Frankie Zapata has created a jet-powered board, a flying chair, and a hybrid personal VTOL aircraft. Pivotal Helix and Jetson ONE are bringing electric personal flight closer to real private ownership in the United States. And Volonaut Airbike turns the fantasy of a flying motorcycle into something that has been shown moving through the real world. The biggest challenge now may not be whether these machines can fly. It may be where they are allowed to fly, how safely they can operate, and whether people are truly ready to trust them. Which one would you choose? The electric Jetson ONE, the 2-hour hybrid AirScooter, the gravity jet suit, or the unbelievable Volonaut Airbike? Tell us in the comments below. And subscribe to Unbox the World for more incredible aircraft, futuristic vehicles, hidden aviation stories, luxury machines and technologies that are transforming the way we explore the world. This is Unbox the World. We do not just show you the future, we open it. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.